The Frederick Valentich disappearance vanished over Bass Strait. A pilot radios that an unknown craft is hovering over him. 6 minutes later, he vanishes forever with no trace of wreckage found. Late afternoon, on October 21, 1978, the sky over Bass Strait stretches clear and calm between the Australian mainland and Tasmania. 20-year-old Frederick Valentich sits in the cockpit of a Cessna 182L, piloting the small aircraft on a solo training flight from Moorabbin Airport in Melbourne to King Island. The flight is routine, part of his continuing aviation education, a straightforward journey over familiar waters. At approximately 7 o'clock in the evening, Valentich radios Melbourne Flight Service Unit. What he reports in the next 6 minutes becomes one of the most documented and unexplained disappearances in aviation history. The voice on the recording is calm at first, professional. Valentich contacts air traffic controller Steve Roby to inquire about other traffic in his vicinity. He reports that an unidentified craft is flying over him at approximately 1,000 feet. Roby checks his radar and responds that there is no known traffic in the area. Valentich describes what he observes. The craft appears to have 4 bright landing lights. It is moving at a speed he cannot determine. It is approaching from the east. The transcript continues, each line preserved exactly as transmitted. Valentich reports that the craft passes over him at approximately 300 meters altitude. He states that it appears to be playing a game with him, circling around his aircraft. He cannot confirm what type of aircraft it is. The language he uses is precise, the observations clear. He is describing something in real time, relaying details to the controller as the event unfolds above him in the darkening sky over Bass Strait. Roby asks Valentich to describe the craft. Valentich responds that it has 4 bright lights that appear to be landing lights. The lights are very bright. He cannot identify the type of aircraft. It is moving faster than his Cessna. The craft seems to be stationary now, hovering above him. Then it is orbiting. Then Valentich makes a statement that will become central to every analysis of this case. He says clearly, transmitting directly to air traffic control, that it is not an aircraft. The transcript becomes more urgent. Valentich reports that his engine is running roughly. The craft is still above him. He states again that it is hovering and that he cannot identify it. The metallic quality of his voice suggests confusion, perhaps the first edge of fear. He is a trained pilot describing his observations to a trained controller, following protocol, relaying information. But the information itself defies conventional explanation. Then, at precisely 1912 minutes Coordinated Universal Time, the transmission changes. Valentich states one final time that the object is not an aircraft. Immediately following this statement, a metallic scraping sound begins. The sound lasts approximately 17 seconds. It is recorded in full by the Melbourne Flight Service Unit. Then there is silence. Frederick Valentich does not respond to further calls from Steve Roby. The Cessna does not appear on radar. The aircraft and its pilot vanish completely. The Australian Department of Transport launches an immediate and extensive search of Bass Strait. Aircraft and vessels comb the waters between the mainland and King Island. Bass Strait is a well-traveled and well-documented body of water. Previous aviation accidents in the area have resulted in the recovery of wreckage without exceptional difficulty, but no trace of Valentich or his Cessna is found. No wreckage, no debris, no oil slick, no emergency locator transmitter signal. The search continues for days and expands across a wide area of the strait. Nothing is recovered. The formal investigation begins. The Australian Department of Transport examines every aspect of the flight. They review Valentich's training records, his experience, the condition of the aircraft, the weather conditions, and the radio transcript. The weather on the evening of October 21 was clear with good visibility. The Cessna was properly maintained and airworthy. Valentich was a competent pilot with adequate training for the flight he was conducting. There is no indication of mechanical failure prior to the moment he reported engine trouble during the encounter. Investigators consider conventional explanations. Engine failure is examined, but engine failure does not account for the real-time description of a craft with 4 bright lights circling his aircraft. Spatial disorientation is considered, a phenomenon where pilots lose sense of their position relative to the horizon, but spatial disorientation does not explain the detailed and coherent radio communications describing an external object. Fuel starvation is analyzed, but the Cessna carried sufficient fuel for the flight, and Valentich made no mention of fuel concerns in his transmissions. The 6-minute transcript remains the core of the mystery. It is a contemporaneous record, not a story told afterward, not a memory subject to distortion. It is Frederick Valentich describing what he observes in real time as it happens above him in the sky. The transcript documents a progression: identification of an unknown craft, description of its movements, increasing proximity, engine trouble, and then the abrupt end marked by the metallic scraping sound. Multiple civilian witnesses come forward following the disappearance. Residents in the area around King Island report seeing an unidentified craft in the sky on the evening of October 21, 1978. The sightings are consistent in timing with Valentich's flight and his radio transmissions. The witnesses describe unusual lights moving in ways inconsistent with conventional aircraft. Their reports corroborate that something anomalous was occurring in the airspace over Bass Strait at the relevant time. Researcher Richard Haynes, a former NASA scientist with expertise in aviation and unidentified aerial phenomena, analyzes the case in detail. Haynes examines the transcript, the witness reports, the search results, and the investigation findings. His conclusion is that the evidence is consistent with Valentich having encountered an unknown craft. Haynes notes the precision of the radio communications, the absence of any indication of pilot error or mechanical failure prior to the encounter, and the complete disappearance of the aircraft and pilot with no wreckage recovered. The Australian Department of Transport issues its formal assessment. The cause of the disappearance cannot be determined. The report does not identify any conventional explanation consistent with the radio transcript and the physical evidence. The case remains officially open, classified as cause unknown, a rare designation in aviation accident investigation. The absence of wreckage is itself a critical anomaly. Bass Strait is a confined body of water relative to open ocean. It has been searched extensively following other aviation incidents. Wreckage from aircraft accidents in Bass Strait has been recovered in multiple cases before and after the Valentich disappearance. The complete absence of any physical trace of the Cessna is inconsistent with typical aircraft accidents in the area. The metallic scraping sound recorded at the end of the transmission has been analyzed by audio experts. The sound does not match typical aircraft mechanical failures. It does not match radio interference patterns. Its origin remains unidentified. It is the last sound transmitted from Frederick Valentich's aircraft before the silence. Theories emerge over the years, as they always do in cases of unexplained disappearance. Some suggest Valentich staged his own disappearance, but this theory does not account for the complete absence of the aircraft, the wreckage, or any evidence of Valentich after October 21, 1978. Others propose that Valentich experienced a psychological episode and flew into the water, but this does not explain the real-time description of a craft confirmed by independent civilian witnesses in the area. The Valentich case occupies a unique position in the documentation of unidentified aerial phenomena. It is not a sighting reported after the fact. It is not an ambiguous radar trace or a distant light in the sky captured on grainy film. It is a trained pilot communicating with air traffic control, describing an unidentified craft in precise detail as it circles his aircraft, followed immediately by his permanent disappearance. The 6-minute transcript is a real-time record of an encounter that ended with the complete vanishing of both pilot and aircraft. No conventional aviation accident scenario accounts for all the evidence. Engine failure does not explain the craft description. Spatial disorientation does not explain the coherent radio transmissions. Fuel starvation does not explain the metallic sound. Pilot error does not explain the absence of wreckage. Each conventional explanation fails to address one or more critical elements of the documented evidence. Frederick Valentich's final words, transmitted clearly to Melbourne Flight Service Unit, were that the object above him was not an aircraft. 17 seconds of metallic scraping followed. Then nothing. The sky over Bass Strait has yielded no answers in the decades since. The waters have kept their silence. The Cessna and its young pilot remain missing, their fate unknown, their disappearance preserved in 6 minutes of recorded radio transmission that documents an encounter with something that defies conventional explanation. If you found this case compelling, subscribe to Vanishing Roads for more documented paranormal investigations from around the world. This story was created with AI assistance based on documented case files. All events reference real investigations and reported incidents.